your socks! Hey!
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast, now streaming on all major podcast platforms. A Till Valhalla Project ambassador. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a My Veteran Story with Kimmons Gray. Happens to be my cousin. So anyways, this is going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. But if you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you go to our website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check it out. See what we got going on. There is a merchandise tab. Click on that. You can go in there and get you a cool hat, a shirt. You can get you anything. Help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a huge shout out to the Till Valhalla Project and allowing me to be an ambassador for that great organization. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. Go check them out. And if there's any way you can help those guys out, please do so. All right. Well, I got Kimmons here. Kimmons, how you doing?
I'm good, my brother. How are you?
Oh, I can't complain. I'm excited to have you on here and tell your story. I get to hear a little more in detail about it, so it'll be good. So let's start at the beginning for you and kind of where you grew up, and then tell a little bit about that, and then how did you get, what drew you into the military?
Well, I grew up in Oklahoma, and I went to college and there at Oklahoma State and played football for a little bit. And at some point in time, while I was in college, I decided that well, I guess that wasn't a place for me, so I joined the service, went in the Army. But now, before I went full time, I joined the National Guard at the very first.
Okay.
And I did that at 11 Hotel, a tow gunner. Went to boot camp, Fort Benning, Georgia, and I did that for a little bit, and then I decided to go full time. So I went regular Army, and when I went in the Army, I decided to go in aviation. So went in as a crew chief on the Blackhawk.
Nice.
And, I enjoyed that a whole lot. It was a whole lot different than the infantry, no doubt. In the infantry, it was a little bit more, you'd be out in the woods for a long time wishing you had a bath, and then you go to get on the helicopter, and those guys on the helicopter, they had just had a fresh meal the night before, and they didn't stink. And so I said, that's what I want to do. So anyhow, I went in aviation and went to work as crew chief on a Blackhawk. And I did that for the rest of the time I was in service. And I got stationed. Now, when I was in the Guard originally, we had one duty assignment over at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. At the time, they were bringing a bunch of Cubans in. And that was when there was a whole bunch of them. And they had them in the compound there, and they had the guards there kind of keeping an eye on them. But that was the only thing I really did with them. But when I went full time, they sent me to Fort Eustis, Virginia. And the Army has more boats than the Navy. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah,
no.
They're talking about all those river boats and stuff that,
Yeah.
And they say that the Army has more aircraft than the Air Force. I didn't know that, but they're talking about all the helicopters.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. But anyhow, went to Fort Eustis and I did my little aviation training and whatnot there. And then I went to Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay. Well, hey, before we get too far into it, let's go back because I want to hear a little bit about your boot camp experience.
Okay.
So can you talk me through what was that like going to boot camp? Was it a good experience, bad experience? Like what was that for you?
Boot camp in the infantry at Fort Benning was a heck of an experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but Lord Jesus, it was tough. It was at Sand Hill. And I remember when you first get there, they trick you. They send you this little old place. It's a kind of a welcoming center station or whatever. I don't know. And there's guys that they look like drill sergeants. They're dressed like drill sergeants, but they're nice. And that's where you get your uniforms and get your hair cut off and everything. And I thought, well, man, this ain't that tough. I thought it was gonna be a lot worse than this. Well, then about you're there for a few days, and then the real drill sergeants show up. They have all these cattle cars come in. They just basically busted, transport troops to and fro. And about 10 of them pulled in there, and these men stepped off them doggone vehicles. They were just looked like they straight out of hell. They were just mean as all get out. And they were stout. I mean, these were men. There wasn't no betas. These were all alphas. And man, they went to hollering, and I'm thinking, Lord have mercy. And boy, they had us all run around getting this line, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. And you had I don't remember what all we had, but you had your duffel bag and this and that and the other, all your stuff that you just been issued. Plus, remember, you got all your civilian stuff still with you too that you came with. And so anyhow, we get on these cattle carts and off to our duty assignment. Like I said, I was at Sand Hill. And when we get there, there's another whole set of drill sergeants standing there waiting on us. And they're all foaming at the mouth, ready to go. And they get us out, and they hurry, go, 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 go. And got us running in a circle, toting all this stuff in a big circle around the company area right there. And man, you tired and don't know what's going on. And they're telling you the whole time you're running, if you got anything with you that ain't OD green or issued by the United States government, you better get rid of it right now. And you ain't running now. So you got guys throwing cigarettes and snuff and anything they had. Now, they said you could keep your Bible, but anything that wasn't issued and wasn't a Bible, you had to get rid of. And they throwed it in a pile in the middle of this compound, right, where you're running in a circle. So Andrew, there is a pile of everything you can imagine, from cigarettes, snuff, clothes, socks, pants, shirts, everything. The big pile. Didn't turn the bayonet in. Oh my Lord! Now you might as well. The sun ain't going to shine again, and the world quit revolving until we find this bayonet. I mean, they had us down in the hand pit where we did our PT. Like sawdust, about 6 inches. They had us down our hands and knees going through this sawdust all over. Walked all the way back to the bayonet. I mean, we did this for a good 12, 14 hours. And you're already exhausted. You ain't getting no sleep. And finally, after everybody gives up, we can't find the bayonet. The sergeant said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I miscounted." And so it was all a big show, is all it was. Yeah. But
Very
there
nice.
was a lot of experiences like that. I can remember them taking, and they had some dirty books up in the ceiling, above the ceiling tiles. And I'm certain that the drill sergeant probably put them there before the guys got there.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, they found those dirty books. And I mean, they trashed that whole bay. They took beds, thrown them out the windows, and all the stuff, empty wall lockers out. I mean, it was a mess. And they gave you like 5 minutes to get all your stuff back in order. And you're trying to go through all this stuff, find out what pants fit you. And it was a mess. But, yeah. But,
Now,
when it was
you-
all said and done, I wouldn't trade. I tell you what, Andrew, I learned. I tell you, before I went down there, you could not have told me I could put 90 pounds on my back and walk 22 miles. You
Yeah.
could have told me that. Today, and I'm an old man now, an old fat man, wore out. But I guarantee you, in my mind, I can still walk 22 miles if I got to, because I done it.
Yeah.
So
Once you prove to yourself you can do it, then you can do it.
that's it. Amen.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
You may not do it as fast as you used to, but you can still do it.
It's all up here. It's all up
That's
here.
right. That's right. So after that, then you said you went to Fort Eustis for your training. No, I'm sorry, that was National Guard. So
I did that, and
you went
that
straight
was,
in. You went
I
straight
did that
into
for
the
about
infantry.
a year. Yeah.
Okay.
I was in the infantry about a year, and we did National Guard ain't nothing like real Army. I mean, you're kind of like playing soldier on occasion.
Yeah.
But then when I went full time, I had an option to go into aviation.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I thought that was cool because, like I
Oh
said,
yeah.
when we got playing war games and stuff, we got moved to and fro in helicopters. Of course, at that time it was a Huey's, but the Blackhawk was the new deal,
Yeah.
and so I jumped on that. I said, yeah, I want to do that, and I remember anyhow I got stationed at Fort Lewis with that one, and that was a very I have a few experiences there that I remember pretty vividly.
Okay. Well, talk to me a little bit about what you did, and then some of those experiences you had up there. Speaking of
Well,
helicopters, I have helicopters flying over right now.
oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, what it is a crew chief that in a company, an aviation company, you got one squad those are the crew chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
They crew chiefs, and another odd thing about an aviation unit is most, like in the infantry stuff, you've got a couple officers, you got a couple lieutenants and a captain, this, that, and the other. But in an aviation unit, man, you got a whole pocket full of officers because you got all the
Yeah.
warrant officers and all of them because they're flying the helicopter.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the enlisted, you got your crew chiefs over here, and then you got your maintenance guys that work on the aircraft, and you got your supply and all, the motor pool and all those guys in the company.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever an aviation unit goes to the field, they've got all the support mechanisms with them that they need, the fuel, everything.
Right.
Well, in my part, the crew chief, I think there was like, I want to say there was like 15 of us in my platoon that were actual crew chiefs, and each one of us had hand receipted signed for a $7.2 million aircraft. That was our
Oh my
baby.
gosh.
Yeah, we were responsible for that bird, and we made sure the work was done on it, and the logs was in order and everything, and if it was a situation where every time you landed, you had to do inspections and stuff and make sure everything's good. Now the pilots are going to get on that aircraft before they fly, and they're going to do their own inspection. If they find something wrong, they're going to tell you and they're going to write it up. And you got to get it done. You got to get it corrected before they can lift off.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more tedious in that aspect. But then you've got a bunch of stuff that you got to deal with that like for the major inspections, they have certain crews that do that. Like you got to say, I don't know, a 500-hour inspection. Your aircraft actually goes to a hangar that this whole crew, that's all they do is inspections. They take it apart.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much. If your engine, something wrong with the engine, you got guys that work on just engines, avionics, just avionics. So if it's a specialty issue, you've got support mechanisms that you can go to help you with that. But
right.
Back to being in that unit, I know there was at one time, and we got to do this on occasion because everybody thinks it's cool that let their kids climb on an aircraft and this, that, and the other. Well, I remember Boeing was up in Seattle was doing some sort of I don't know, kind of like a fair or whatever, get together. All the civilians were there. And we got picked. My aircraft got picked to be the Blackhawk there at that show.
Oh, okay.
And so me and two warrant officers went up there, and we stayed in a really super nice hotel, and Boeing paid the bill, and they said that we could have anything we wanted to eat. The only thing we had to pay for would be alcohol and telephone calls. So,
oh, wow.
Look, I was eating steak and lobster like 3 times a day. It was a big deal. But the thing that, I mean, you got all these little kids want to climb your aircraft, and of course you're real picky about what buttons to get pushed, but they don't care. They just start pushing everything and changing everything. And so I spent my whole day trying to keep kids from tearing my aircraft up. But but that was a lot of fun. And we got another trip. There's a place they call it NTC, and it's in California in Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been there, but
that's the oh man, I can't remember the name of the base. Do you remember the name of the base that's there?
We call it, I think it's NTC is what we call it, but they dress up like the enemy, and all their aircraft, their vehicles, everything. At the time, they were all Russian. They had like Russian uniforms, helicopters, and vehicles. All were Russian soldiers because that was the enemy at the time. Right. Now they got them all dressed up like, I guess, like is Muslims or whatever. I don't know, with the turbans and all that, because the enemy's changed. But anyhow, we went down there and stayed for, I don't remember, it seemed like a month or two in the desert. And man, I mean, tell you, it's desert, brother. It's Death Valley. It ain't nothing. Snakes and lizards, and every once in a while you'd see a jackrabbit or something. But yeah, that was a pretty desolate place. But I remember one time, my aircraft had to go to the coast to Monterey.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Monterey, because we had to get some aircraft parts. Well, while we was there, we rode flight suits, right? And I had two warrant officers and me, and all three of us were in flight suits. The only way you could tell the difference is obviously on the little name tag, it had me as a Spec 4. Yeah. And they had them as a warrant officer and blah, blah, blah. So anyhow, while we was there, apparently there's like a Navy, some sort of a Navy facility there, and they had an officers club. Now, mind you, being enlisted, we were never allowed to go around the officers club. That was like, that was like taboo. That was like, you're going to go to hell if you go to the officers club. It was a bad thing. Well, these guys said, hey, you want to go to the officers club? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. They said, because we're going to, and what they did is they told them I was a specialty pilot 4th class. And they didn't know the difference. So I got to go in there, and man, Andrew, officers club ain't nothing like an enlisted club. There's a bunch of beautiful women in the officers club.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it ain't like an enlisted club. The only difference is most of those women are the wives of the other guys that didn't come to, but nonetheless, it was I enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun. But wow. had another time we went to Honduras for 6 months. And that was pretty interesting. There's a little bit more stuff happened there, but nonetheless, we had a compound out in the jungle, and had basically a glorified chicken coop. It was there was 8 of us stayed in it, 4 on each side, and it's kind of built like a shotgun house. You had a hallway down the middle with a door on each end, and 4 separate living cubicles, I guess. And there was a bed, and then there was like a little, I don't really want to call it a living room, but there was a little area up front where you had a TV or whatever, radio, and a couple of chairs, sit around and visit. But and every day it rained down in the jungle, so they had like a piece of plywood over the screen wire would raise up, and then when it rained, you just shut it down so you didn't get all the water inside. Yeah. But that's where we lived. And had a hooch maid that would come in there, and she would wash your clothes, make your bed, and shine your boots. And I think we paid her like $10 a week or something like that. And she took care of she had like 3 or 4 hooches she took care of. Took care of all those guys' laundry and everything. And I mean, would fold it, press it, everything was ready. Your boots would shine. I mean, it was easy.
Wow. But, she was probably making good money then.
Yeah, because see, back down there, I think at the time, a grown man would only make maybe, I don't know, I want to say $400 a year, US dollars. Yeah. And she was making per soldier $10 a month. Yeah. So she had, I don't know, 40, 50 guys she was taking care of. Yeah, she made real good money. Yeah, she did. Wow. But, there was a few things I didn't like down there that I saw, but primarily that, and I know one time we had to fly to the coast to get, I don't know, again, to get some parts or something. And we got to stay in this fancy hotel. They didn't have hot water or cold. They didn't have hot water because it's tropics, Yeah. You don't need hot water, you just, and in the bathroom and stuff, and I thought that was pretty interesting. It was an old hotel. I had the gargoyles, and I mean, it was
wow.
old. It was cool. But I met a man down there. He was a civilian American. We was at a little cantina, and he worked for, I think, Dole Banana.
Okay.
He was like a big foreman kind of guy, and he lived down there and was about to retire. And what he did is he kind of overseed the all the banana orchards or whatever they had there, and he was the middleman between the guys that worked it, the locals, and it gets shipped back to America.
Right.
But this guy told me that he was fixing to retire. He had found him a woman down there he had married, and he had built a house. I mean, in our neck of the woods, it'd be about a $500,000 house. But he built it down there dirt cheap. He had a maid and a yard guy, a guy that took care of everything outside. Yeah. And they worked for him, and all he paid them was $40 a week. That's it.
Wow.
And I mean, these guys lived there on the compound.
Yeah.
It was a man and his wife. She took care of the house, and he took care of outside. And he paid each of them $40 a week. And I asked him, I said, well, you always hear the war stories and stuff about how the government comes in, they try to take your stuff, the tax collectors. He said, well, here's the secret. He said, you find your local law enforcement, whoever's in charge, like your sheriff.
Yeah.
He said, and you make sure that you give him at Christmas a crisp $100 bill every Christmas. And then as far as your tax collector, the same thing. You invite him over to supper and make sure he gets a Christmas present every year, and they never bother you. He said it's easy to beat, and they don't even knock on your door.
Wow.
I thought
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, what all were you doing while you were down there?
Mainly that was back when that Noriega stuff was going on, and we were flying Delta Force into the jungles. They had a lot of PSYOPs teams down there that was going into the villages trying to. I mean, there was a bunch of political upheaval in the area between the locals and the governments and this, that, and the other. And we were actually going into El Salvador, Nicaragua, and all but our base was in Honduras.
Got it.
And the Delta Force guys, they're not much for conversation. They don't talk very much, but they're definitely an eerie crew. These guys all have full beards but they don't talk.
Yeah.
And they have a little, you see, even like at Fort Lewis, you had the Ranger Battalion, you had the Green Berets and stuff. And those guys, I mean, I lived down the street from a sergeant that was a Ranger, and they're cool, and they're all in good shape and all this, and hoorah. But this crew, there was an eerie silence about them. I mean, they would talk to each other and stuff, but when you looked in their eyes, there was an emptiness. I mean, they were strictly business, is what I'm trying to say. And we would drop them off in the jungle, and we pick them up in the jungle. We have no idea what they did, where they went, nothing. We drop them off in a certain place, and we pick them up in another place. But
wow,
that was pretty cool. Now we had some things that I did not like. Like, for example, there was a family of civilians, locals. It was a man, a woman. They had like 7 kids, something like that. And where the compound was, there was a fence, and there was a free fire zone outside that fence about 100 feet. Well, the local government, the local soldiers had fields where they grew their food for their troops.
Right.
And in this particular field was tomato plants. And this man and his family, he was responsible for taking care of that field of tomatoes. They had a house, they had a dirt floor, and there was hammocks hanging in. You could see in the door all the hammocks. Okay, so the man, he was the farmer that actually took care of the tomato plants in that field. But what we would do, and now mind you, we understood the rules. But you know how Americans are, we don't abide by the rules half the time. So the rule was don't have anything to do with the locals. Don't talk to them, don't do nothing. Right. But
Right.
we saw these kids running around. I mean, they were just poor. When we say poor here, we ain't seen poor around here.
Yeah.
Like these people are showing up poor. They ain't got nothing to eat. And so we would leave there was a PX on the Honduran base there, and we would drive. We'd be in the back of a deuce and a half, and we would go from our compound around down the fence row past some of these farmhouses to the PX where we would get nabs and socks or candy or whatever we wanted.
Yeah.
Well, on the way back, we would always get some extra stuff and we would throw it over the fence to the kids on the way back, like tennis shoes, socks, candy, toys, whatever. Well, one day we went by there and there was nobody there. Everybody was gone. Now, mind you, we were there for 6 months. The first 4 months we were doing this and giving food and stuff to this family. And now they're all gone. And so we asked the local guy, the translator there, that, you know, what happened to them? He said, oh, they got in trouble. And I thought, why? I want you to know this man who grew this field of tomatoes, it was probably 20 acres of tomatoes.
Yeah.
He went to prison because he got some tomatoes out of the field that he was growing for the army. And they put that man in prison. He has a family who now are going to be living in cardboard boxes because he got some tomatoes out of that field to feed his family. Now, see, stuff like that, I got an issue with.
Yeah.
But, and I can remember I had KP duty one day. KP in the Army is like, I don't know if y'all got it, but it'd be like you got to, once every month or 2 months, the lower enlisted guys have to go do KP duty, which means you got to work in the kitchen to carry out the trash or mop the floor, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I had to pull KP duty one time, and we had just had at our lunch or chow hall that we had just had some barbecued chicken, had corn on the cob, something else. I can't remember what. Anyhow, I can remember the barbecue chicken and the corn on the cob vividly. But anyhow, at the end of the evening or whatever, they had all these trash cans full of where they dumped the plates.
Yeah.
So we loaded them up on a deuce and a half and went down to a dump or a landfill that the local military had that they guarded within 16. They had a big swath of earth they had dug out with a bulldozer, and you backed your truck up to it and dumped them off into this big canyon, if you will.
Yeah.
Big ditch. They had concertina wire around this dump, Andrew.
Wow.
And on the other side of the concertina wire, you had civilians living in cardboard boxes, probably where that man's family was now.
Yeah.
And when we would dump that trash into that ditch, the soldiers, the local Honduran soldiers would go off in that trash and be grabbing corn on the cob and chicken bones and stuff, and they'd have a box or a piece of cardboard, and they'd be putting corn on the cob in one box and chicken leg bones in another box.
Yeah.
Any food they could salvage out of that trash, they was taking home to their family or selling it, I don't know. But the thing that troubled my spirit, the people on the other side of that fence who were starving to death, when we dumped that trash, they started coming over that wire trying to get in that dump. And these men shot them M16s off into that crowd.
Oh, wow.
For trying to get their garbage. Okay? That's what the value of life is in other countries. That's why they're coming here in the millions, because they want to live here. because to them, there is no welfare. There is no food stamps. There is no handout. They either live or they die.
Yeah.
And our people don't understand how wonderful we have it here. They have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
But that troubled my spirit too. I was very angry at those men. And I remember I traded a can of Coca-Cola for a python. I wanted a python to take back with me. And I talked to this little native, this little boy. I said, "Do you have any culebra, little snake?" He said, "Oh, yeah." So he went off into the jungle. And I told him, I said, "I'll give you Coca-Cola for a culebra." So he went off in the jungle and come back about 2 hours later. He was hollering, "Senor, senor." And I went over the fence. He had a little Burmese python, a little python about that long.
Yeah.
And I stuck him a can of Coca-Cola through the fence, and he gave me that snake. Now, mind you, I had an aircraft. In that helicopter, there's a tail cone. You got the fuel cells behind where the troops sit. You take those panels, you got these big square fuel cells. Behind that, going back toward the tail rotor, is a long hollow tube, the tail cone. There's nothing back there. It's empty. And nobody ever goes back there, right? Nobody. Well, I ended up putting that python and about 3 M16s that I had bought from the locals on the, I guess they were stolen, took off of dead folks. I don't know, but I paid $10 a piece for these M16s. And I took out 3 of them weapons and that little old python, and I put him in a jar with grass and had where he could breathe. And I stuck them in that tail cone when we were leaving, coming back to the States.
Yeah.
And I knew that the aircraft would be in there, for probably a full day or two, but I figured the snake would live. And then when I got back to the States, I went back when you had to get your aircraft off that C-5A and put it back together and everything. I'd get my snake and my guns out, and I done good, right?
Yeah.
These pot lickers, they done this before. They done seen this trick. I want you to know, when I got back there, it was all gone, and there was a note saying, "Thought we wouldn't look, didn't you?" Yeah. They went to all my snake, my guns, everything out, and left that little note for me.
Well, at least they just left you a note,
Yeah.
Didn't try to bust you down or something.
Yeah. So that was pretty interesting. But yeah,
I'm sure that happens quite a bit,
Oh yeah, I bet you every one of them helicopters got something hit off in it, because there's stuff that you can get there that you can't get up there,
Oh yeah,
but,
for sure.
Anyhow.
And then you went back up to where you were before, and then how much longer were you in?
About a year, something like that.
A year longer.
I wish now that I had stayed in. However, at the time, I was on what we call the Fat Boy program. Now, mind you, I played college football before I went in the military.
Yeah.
I was much a man. I was thick, but I was stout. And I had to do the tape test because they wanted me to weigh 180 pounds. Man, I was 235 ninth grade in high school. I can't remember. I was born 180 pounds. So there was no way. I couldn't do it. So I had to go run PT in the morning with everybody else, then go to work. Then in the evening when we came back, I had to do PT again every day. And this was like for a year. And I got so sick of it. And when I go to chow hall, they would take the peach cobbler and give it to the skinny guy next to me and give me more green beans and stuff, And I just got tired of. I couldn't get promoted to E5 until I got down to 180 pounds, and that wasn't ever gonna happen. And I couldn't stay at E4 except I think at the time it was like 13 years and you had to get out.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I might as well go ahead and get out now while I can. And I did. I regret that decision. I wish I'd have stayed in. But
once you got out, now what'd you end up doing right then?
I went in law enforcement. I
Okay.
became a police officer, and I'd stayed there for 28 years to retire out of law enforcement.
Now, did you do
But
that because you moved back oh, Mississippi, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I got married when I was in the Army, or at the end when I
Hmm.
ETS, and we moved to Mississippi. I got a law enforcement job there, and
Yeah.
I had a guy in my unit in my company whose his his wife's uncle was sheriff.
Oh, okay.
So he hooked me up with them, and I got hired on down there, and
And you did that for
uh,
how many years?
28 years.
28 years.
I'm gonna tell you, in Mississippi, you could retire at 25 years. Well,
Yeah.
I thought I had 25 years, Andrew, but what I
Yeah.
did not realize is any sick time that you didn't take, and any vacation time you didn't take, or holiday time that you didn't take, all waits until the end when you retire. I
No
had
kidding.
almost 3 years saved up of sick days. I never took a day off. I
Yeah.
never, and I did not realize. And even if you go to 2 or 3 agencies, they all keep track of that, and it goes into a computer to the state.
Yeah.
So I thought I retired at 25 years, but they gave me 28 on
Wow.
paper. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Well,
was
that's
pretty
not
cool.
bad. Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. So now, I mean, I could. It ain't a great big salary. It's about $1,900 a month, but that's till I die. You know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's better than Social Security. So I figure Social Security ain't gonna make me about $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
So, and I'll be
Now you
old
can
enough for
do,
that in 2 years.
oh, in 2 years you can get it.
Yeah, I'll be 62. I'm 60 now.
Okay.
So, and yeah, you're right. You can bet your tail I'm gonna take it because I'm doing. Yeah, I'm ready to. I'm ready. This is my third farm that I've started.
Yeah.
My last. But once I get me some infrastructure, get me a pond and a fence and a cabin and a chicken coop and all that built,
Hmm.
I'm gonna retire. I'm gonna start drawing Social Security, and I'm gonna buy my animals, and that's where I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna find me a sexy little Filipina, and me and her gonna live in the woods for the rest of my life. Yeah,
Okay. That sounds good.
yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
Well, hey, looking back on all the time that you spent military and even being a cop and everything, what is some life lessons that you would have for people?
Life lessons. That's a good question.
I shotgunned you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't prepared for that one. Life lessons. Um, I would say I think humans, we have a tendency to think that we are more important than we are.
Hmm.
And one thing I do believe at this point, I've been humbled greatly. Number
Hmm.
one, you realize who Jesus Christ is. That's a fact. And how
Yeah.
powerful that influence is in everything you do.
Hmm.
Second thing is you realize how important life is and how easily it can slip away. Life
Mm.
is so precious.
Yeah.
And we take our young people especially take that for granted.
Hmm.
Um, and then lastly, I'd say people don't realize how great this special and how important it is to keep it intact for the next generation because um, the young people especially, they're not patriots. They don't
Yeah.
have the respect for our nation that they should. They don't love our country like they should.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is because they've never been anywhere else. So they don't understand how good we got it. And secondly,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times the parents, the people our age, have failed in teaching our children how important it is to be an American. And
Yeah.
I know I was married to a Russian for a while, 6 years.
Hmm.
Beautiful woman, beautiful woman. Well, she told me stories. Now, she was 12 years old when Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Yeah.
12. So before that, she wore a little red star to school every day. Okay.
Oh, wow.
She said she remembers one day, and this is my last story, and I'll shut up. But one day she was cleaning the house, and she come in there and she was crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, baby, what's the matter? Why are you upset? And she said, she was in my daughter's room, and my youngest, who was at the time was like 15.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, she's got a whole stack of Christmas presents in there that she's never even opened. And this was like May, okay, in her closet. She said, I remember every birthday and every Christmas since I was 12 years old. And here's why. She said, when she turned 12 years old and the wall fell, her father bought her a pack of Juicy Fruit bubble gum for her birthday. She kept it in her little refrigerator, and she would chew it, and when she get through, she put it back in the refrigerator. She chewed every piece of that gum until it was all one color and there was no flavor left.
Yeah.
Okay. She said for Christmas, she got a navel orange for Christmas. She remembers it to this day. She remembers one Christmas she got a Barbie doll. And she told me every present she got every birthday and Christmas from the time she was 12 years old.
Wow.
And that says something for our kids, because I asked my daughter after we had this conversation, I said, do you know what you got for Christmas? She said, no, but I know that I got 47. I said, what do you mean for? She said, I got 47 gifts. I said, how do you know that? She said, because we had a contest who's going to get the most gifts.
Holy cow.
And it woke up something in my mind about how we are doing our children the disservice. And I told all my kids that year, this year we're having a birthday party for Jesus. No gifts. Done. This year we're going to have a birthday party for Jesus, because that's what it's about. And y'all don't appreciate what you get anyhow. But these kids overseas in these other countries, they don't get what our kids get. And they don't understand how important it is to be an American, like me and you do. And I had a lot to do in this last election. You know, I seen people in my family that were siding with things that are destructive to our nation. And I don't want to get political, but it's a crying shame. It's just horrible that people don't value life. They don't value our nation. They don't value God. And these are some things I learned over the years that are things that are pillars that are important, things that are substantial, that we should never forget.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's we're going to be moving in the right direction, I think, now. So
I do. I agree. I think you're right.
Yeah, it'd be good.
You're right.
Well, hey, thanks for coming on and sharing the story. I appreciate it. It's definitely good to hear some of the stuff I'd never heard before, so I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everybody else will get a kick out of it too. So that's awesome.
Well, Andrew, I enjoyed it, and I love you, man. I miss you, and I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, it won't be too long. Don't go anywhere, but I'm going to close this one out. Hold on. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
All right, to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget that the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Kimmons cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies you serve with and ask them how they're doing. If they need that helping hand, please give them that helping hand. One last time, Kimmons, thank you to all the listeners. Stay motivated. Change your socks.